There is exactly one living Song of Ice and Fire point of view character who has not been seen or heard from since the release of A Feast for Crows in the year 2005. All other points of view have either received chapters in A Dance with Dragons or sample chapters for The Winds of Winter. Brienne narrowly misses out from this distinction, seeing as she has not received a chapter of her own since Feast. However, she does appear in Jaime's final chapter in A Dance with Dragons. This singular character is at the center of two plot lines that seem to be crashing together and leaving little unharmed in their wake. That single character, who hasn't been seen in 18 years and is at the center of these converging threads, is one Samwell Tarly. Sam first became a point of view character in A Storm of Swords, where he had 5 chapters. Following this, he spent A Feast for Crows mostly on a great voyage, traveling by ship from Eastwatch by the Sea to the Citadel in Oldtown. That ship was called the Cinnamon Wind, and it was dispatched by Jon Snow in the hopes that Sam would someday forge a chain at the Citadel and become the Watch's new maester. He is sent off with Aemon and Gilly in order to accomplish this goal, and the timing of this trip works out quite well in terms of getting the Watch a new maester, as unfortunately Aemon himself does not survive the journey. Prior to Samwell's arrival, the reader has only seen Oldtown once, despite it being an incredibly important location to the series. The A Feast for Crows prologue takes place at the Citadel, from the point of view of a maester in training named Pate. The reader actually gets to meet Pate again in Samwell's final chapter in Feast, where he arrives at the Citadel, but this is quite a strange and surprising occurrence. Pate is killed at the end of the prologue chapter, as happens at the end of all prologue chapters, poisoned by a mysterious figure known only as the Alchemist. This makes Pate's reappearance quite strange, and it seems likely that this is due to the Alchemist being a faceless man who has taken Pate's appearance as their own. Lending further credence Clearwater Revival to this idea is the fact that the Alchemist's appearance seems to match that of Jaqen H'ghar, and the one he used at the end of Arya's story in A Clash of Kings. Prior In an Arya chapter of A Feast for Crows, the kindly man speaks of an origin of their definitely not a cult. The first faceless man was a slave in the mines of old Valyria, who first brought the gift of death to the other slaves in order to give mercy and end their suffering in bondage. That same man eventually brought the gift of death to the masters, which some believe to mean the faceless men caused the doom of Valyria somehow. Regardless of whether or not they caused the doom, the Faceless still have a very strong reason to hold a grudge against the Valyrians and their dragons, being founded by escaped slaves, as the entire city of Braavos is. Perhaps the Faceless Men are attempting to attain this tome for the sake of removing Daenerys' dragons from the board, or otherwise bringing death to the Maesters as they had brought death to their masters. Sam has also met with someone who is likely to be a steadfast ally of Oldtown and of the Citadel, that being Alaras. Alaras is a maester in training who, in all likelihood, is the disguised daughter of Oberyn Martell, Sorella Sand. Alaras is Sorella backwards. When the Sand Snakes discuss their plans, they repeat both that Sorella loves Oldtown with a passion, and that their father had trained at the Citadel for a time. It seems as though Sorella is attempting to follow in her father's footsteps and likely would take drastic measures to protect the Citadel and its contents, due to this passionate love she has for Oldtown. What's more, Alaros is known to be associated with Archmaester Marwyn, a mage who is renowned as being heavily involved in magic and its study, bearing a rod and mask of Valyrian steel. On top of this, in a literal sense, Leighton Hightower, the current lord of Oldtown, is said to have been locked away at the top of the High Tower for the past decade, studying a book of spells with his wife, also called a Mad Maid. All of this magical knowledge could come in handy at the Citadel, especially in identifying certain magical items that might already be involved in Sam's story. In A Clash of Kings, Samwell finds a buried parcel at the Fist of the First Men. This parcel contained dragonglass and a very old-looking war horn. Fans have since speculated that this horn could be the famous Horn of Winter, which is said to have the power to bring down the wall itself. Mance Rayder searched far and wide for this horn, but was unable to find it. Martin keeps subtly reminding the reader that Sam has this horn throughout his journey, seemingly indicating that it may play a role in the story to come, kind of a Chekhov's gun of sorts. All of this to say that there is a lot at play in Samwell's first chapter in The Winds of Winter, but there's one more element that fans often discuss when analyzing Oldtown in The Winds of Winter: the Ironborn. Euron Greyjoy is descending upon the Reach, bringing with him a tide of blood and darkness. He was elected as the King of the Ironborn early in A Feast for Crows at the Kingsmoot, and promises to lay claim to the entirety of Westeros, potentially through a marriage pact with Daenerys Targaryen, during which time he could lay claim to her 3 dragons. Euron's current circumstances have been revealed to us through the Forsaken sample chapter in The Winds of Winter. He is currently residing on an island called the Arbor, just on the southern side of the Reach, where he seems to be gathering his forces after raiding the Shield Islands. He doesn't seem to be in the best spot. He is being surrounded by both the Red Wine Fleet and the Hightower Fleet, and seems to be preparing some sort of dark blood sacrifice, gathering priests, warlocks, and even his own brother and unborn child to him, in an attempt of a massive ritual to, quote, wake krakens from the deep. We can deduce from his current circumstances that whatever sacrifice or strategy that Euron is planning will successfully get him out of his current predicament, being outflanked and trapped by the Red Wine Fleet. What's more, we might have a bit of a hint as to one specific element of his magical potential. In Melisandre's single chapter in A Dance with Dragons, she glimpses the following vision. Then the towers by the sea, crumbling as the dark tide comes sweeping over them, rising from the depths. Shadows in the shape of skulls, skulls that turn to mist, bodies locked together in lust, writhing and rolling and clawing. Through the curtains of fire, great winged shadows wheeled against a hard blue sky. Later, she goes on to specify even further that those towers by the sea are, quote, where the heaviest blow will fall. One might first think that the Towers by the Sea refers to Euron attacking Oldtown, as the High Tower is its most famous landmark, and it is ruled by the Hightowers, a family that is symbolized by literal towers. And this assumption is pretty widespread in the fan community. However, his current circumstances indicate the exact opposite, and offer a much more likely candidate for the prophecy that is much closer to Euron's current location. Looking at the Ironborn's trajectory, they started out in the Iron Islands and then arrived in the Shield Islands during a Victarion chapter later in Feast. Victarion then moves on from the Shields all the way to Slaver's Bay, whereas Euron goes from the Shield Islands to the Arbor, which is just south of the Reach itself. He actually sails past Oldtown to get to the Arbor in the first place. What's more, within the Forsaken chapter itself, we get 2 more hints as to Euron's eventual destination and intentions. Firstly, in this chapter, Euron's lieutenant states that the Hightower fleet is coming to catch them in the rear. This means that they are sailing directly away from Oldtown. This makes it seem as though Oldtown is not their goal. They're not attempting to raid the Hightower. They are not attempting to plunder the Citadel. Rather, they might have another larger goal in mind. While it doesn't seem like they're going to conquer Oldtown, Euron getting trapped in this strait does seem quite intentional. This has a great resemblance to what happened to Victarion during the First Greyjoy Rebellion, where his entire fleet gets trapped in a fleet and smashed by the Manus, the one true king, Stannis Baratheon. Euron seems to want revenge for that, and to prove that he is better than his brother and much more suited for the throne and much stronger. By getting himself cornered intentionally, he might be pursuing a consolidation of his station and of his power. This consolidation of power would involve Euron taking the most prized naval fleet in Westeros out of commission for the entirety of whatever conflict is to come. The Red Wine Fleet is renowned across the country and across the world as the best fleet the Westeros has to offer. Euron wants to be the only naval power around, and hence why he's trapped himself here and summoned 2 sets of enemies to one place, hopefully to be destroyed by this kraken that he's going to summon from the deep, by this massive blood sacrifice of holy men on each of his ships. George R.R. Martin always famously says that magic is like a sword without a hilt. There's no safe way to grasp it. And I think the same is going to be true for Euron as well. I think that his blood sacrifice will very likely be successful. We see that from Melisandre's vision in A Dance with Dragons. However, I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be able to control it, though in this exact circumstance, it might not matter. As long as it destroys his enemies, I think Euron will be pretty happy with the outcome. He still has a plan to get dragons that is in motion, and overall, he would still be very well off if they were to just destroy the Red Wine Fleet and the Hightower Fleet. The aforementioned second hint might give clues to what Euron's eventual goal is after his naval enemies are destroyed. In the visions in the Forsaken chapter, Euron's brother Aeron has these visions brought on by this drug called Shade of the Evening. during which time he sees a vision of Euron on a throne. He initially thinks that he's on the Sea Stone chair in the Iron Islands, but Euron urges him to look closer, and Aeron finds that his brother is sitting upon the Iron Throne of all Westeros, with the gods of all faiths impaled upon the spikes of the swords on the throne itself. It doesn't seem likely, based on his trajectory and based on what he's currently doing, that Euron is headed for Oldtown. I think much more likely he is headed instead for the throne itself, or even to go to the Stepstones to hopefully meet Daenerys there on her way over from Meereen. This would make a lot more sense with his grand ambitions, as well. Yes, the Oldtown is a very big hub, big city. It's not particularly associated with magic in terms of the ideas of the small folk. If anything, the Maesters seem to be more against magic than anything else, which could be a reason for Euron to investigate it, just given the fact that he is a very magical being and very much in favor of magic and might want to strike down those against it. However, based on the angles at which he's sailing and how he's traveled, it doesn't seem like very likely that he will actually attack Oldtown in any capacity at the beginning of the Winds of Winter. So, to recap the big points from this video, Sam's first chapter, or first chapters in the Winds of Winter, are likely to be complete chaos. Martin has not shown us anything of Sam for the past 18 years, and it seems quite likely that is for a reason. He is at a massive convergence point of knowledge and magic that seems liable to explode from any one of many sources. The Hightowers dabbling in magic, a faceless man, secrets of the Citadel unearthed by the Sphinx, Aurelius. That always is a bit of a tongue twister for me. I apologize for that. In addition to this, we know that Euron is nearby and planning some dark blood sacrifice in the water. It seems quite likely that this will lead to Euron defeating the two fleets that he stands against. However, I'm unsure as to whether or not he will actually be attacking Oldtown, specifically with the idea that he does know about the Horn of Winter, and that is his goal in getting it and tearing the wall down. I don't think that's very likely. Sam doesn't know he has the Horn of Winter, and it seems much less likely that Euron would actually know that as well. Seeing as we've seen no indication that it's magical at all, nor has Euron mentioned anything about a Horn of Winter, even though he's talked a lot about a horn that will bind dragons to his will. It does seem likely that Euron's main goal, his main focus, is securing the Iron Throne, perhaps through securing an alliance with Daenerys Targaryen. I do have much more to say on Euron in the very near future. I'm probably going to do that either next week or the week after. I have a video specifically on who I think Euron is going to end up marrying, because I don't think it'll be Daenerys, but I think it'll be another very important, fairly magical person who is already involved in our story. Be sure to stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think Sam's first chapter is going to be like? What do you think Euron's role in Winds is going to be like? Hopefully a lot better than the show. I'd really appreciate any comments, likes, subscribes, anything gained from this video. My idea to make this video was actually kind of a full circle thing. My first ever post in any Song of Ice and Fire community was a post on the subreddit saying that stuff's going to hit the fan during Sam's first Winds of Winter sample chapter. And I really wanted to kind of follow up on that and bring that back into my modern age. So yeah, stay tuned next week. Should have another video coming out. And yeah, I appreciate you all watching. Have a nice day. See you soon.